Have you ever wondered if there's another way of traveling the world, as opposed to staying in five-star resorts, going to the beach, or staying in fancy Airbnbs? And these questions are the same a bunch of people have been asking themselves, and they go by the name of sacred footsteps. Hello and welcome, my name is William. I am a researcher in sociology at the University of Warwick in the UK, and I am presenting to you this video series, which is about my latest book, Muslims in the Neoliberal Empire, where I ask the question, how does the society colonize us and what can we do about it? How can I describe it? I would say it's a blog, it's a website, but it's a community before anything else. Because again, colonization, modern life, people have adopted this kind of way of traveling to a country where we travel for the resorts, we travel for the food, but instead of traveling to see the historical sites or to connect with the people, to connect with the language. And this is where Sacred Footsteps enter into the game. So it started as a travel blog where people would focus on religious heritage sites, would focus on architecture, would focus on the function and the history of places and how they are connected with history, like dynasties, rulers, political events that have shaped the modern world. And soon it became a community of people all across the globe sharing the same interests, but from a Muslim perspective, which means you can't really travel just to satisfy your consumerist desires, but how to travel in a sustainable manner, how to travel in an ethical and responsible manner, respecting people, respecting cultures, and respecting histories. 100% volunteer-led and community-led initiative aiming at decentering the way we travel and see the world. How do people celebrate Ramadan or Eid in such and such country? How their specific understanding of Islam has shaped the architecture, the lifestyle, the history. So you'll find on the website lots of practical guides, a few videos, they organize events, online conversations, but also reflections on, for example, decentering our taste when it comes to photography or the way we take pictures. And for example, why there is such an emphasis and a hype over Western vloggers. Well, you have in Islamic countries lots of photographers, videographers who know the country better than anyone else and take pictures and have a very different perspective than like anyone who would come from the West without knowing the language, without knowing the context. And because for many of us who are born in Europe and North America, we have subconsciously or not embraced this very same orientalist perspective. As time goes, many of us don't even speak fluently the language of our parents. In some cases, it's even worse. You know, my parents, they are Polish. They never taught me Polish because they wanted me to assimilate. I had to learn Polish later in life, buy my own books and start from scratch. And I didn't know that, for example, in Poland, you have Muslims who are settled since the 14th century. And if you travel to the northeast of the country, you'll find mosques which are 300, 400 years old. I made a full documentary about it. You can watch it on YouTube. Without language, we have lost access to a large part of our heritage, a large part of our knowledge. And of course, not all Muslims practice Islam, and those who practice it practice in very different ways. But there is still elements of the Islamic tradition that have remained and have been embedded within the lifestyle, within the structures of the society. For example, you know, it might seem obvious for many of you, but the first time I went to Turkey and Pakistan, I was just amazed by the fact that there is no one sleeping on the streets. Well, this is a very common sight you find in Paris, you find in London, you find in the US, but that's because the mosques in Turkey or Pakistan and other religious sites are also used as community hubs. They are used as shelters where the poor can find a roof above their heads and they can find food. So of course, you know, no system is perfect, and I'm sure lots of people would have things to say about it. But instead of leaving people to fight for themselves on their own on the streets, they can have a place where to stay. And then it led me to ask myself the question, why is it that mosques in Europe and North America have lost this purpose, have lost this function of being a community hub or a shelter for the most vulnerable in the society. Where especially in places like the UK, where lots of people come from the subcontinent, this is something you find even in the smallest villages in Pakistan. So why has this concept not traveled with people when they came to the UK? And you know, like this change of perspective, like could give someone an idea about how can we do something to address the issue of homelessness in the UK, where, you know, you have shocking, like, you have things that really shocked me. While, you know, in the past it was never thinkable to imagine someone of South Asian descent being left on their own in the streets. But now you have people born in Hindu, Sikh or Muslim families in the UK who, you know, because they have mental health issues or others, people get rid of them and leave them in the streets. And it tells a lot about how the human psyche has evolved. Because if we talk about the poor or the homeless in Europe or North America, you know, the ideas that come to the mind is, you know, these people are a burden, these people are parasites, these people are undesirable. But if you travel eastwards, if you travel to Turkey, if you travel to Pakistan, the narrative is completely different. The poor, the homeless, the marginals are paving the way to Jannah. There is something sacred in helping the poor and the vulnerable. You probably heard about the ED Foundation and how he helped orphans. And this is the mindset I'm talking about. Helping the poor, helping the homeless, helping the vulnerable is an act of worship. So if you want to go closer to God, of course you're never going to consider the homeless as undesirable, as parasites. But you're going to do your best because this is the way of getting closer to God. And this is one example among many others about how to decenter our perspective and what focusing on the human dimension of travels can bring when people focus on, you know, like the society, the history, the culture, as opposed to consumer goods, the hotels, the food, the nice views. I've published on YouTube a conversation with my wife, who is of Pakistani descent, and sharing, you know, reflections about us traveling for Pakistan. So we actually filmed it on the first time I went to Pakistan. So I'll be putting the link in the description. But while these conversations happen like at the individual level, it is important to remember that there's many other people who ask themselves the same question, and this is where Sacred Footsteps enter into play. So I'll be leaving links to their socials and website in the description. And again, this is one of the initiatives that I believe are really worth supporting and contributing, because anyone can contribute. So I hope we will get to change our perception of travels and, you know, change the way to travel, to, again, try to travel in a more authentic manner and counter, like, and detoxify all the information and the standards we've been fed since since we were kids, basically. So I hope it was useful. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, take care of yourselves and each other.